Welcome back everybody. This video is part one of, I will call them mini series. Effectively, I wanted to build an open source project or give an example of how to build an open source project. We're going to go from setup to publishing the Nuget package and then actually consuming the package in order to build something super simple. So the package itself that I'm going to be building is going to be identity integration with Marten. So how you could have your identity framework link up with entity framework core, get all the tables, and then your user manager and sign-in manager is working. We're going to do the same but for Marten. We're going to see, maybe uncover some of the secrets of how the identity framework works. Maybe it's going to be good, maybe it's going to be bad. Let's go ahead and see. Don't forget, if you're enjoying the video, leave a like and subscribe. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments section. I'm going to try to show as much of my thought process as possible. This is going to be open source, so if you do want to see the code for this, everything will be in the description. With that, let's go ahead and get started. And actually, I have a C# course that is out, so if you would like to know C# as I did, go ahead and take a look at it. I'm going to start fresh, maybe just to show how to set up the solution for the whole thing. So if you go ahead and just add a project straight away, it's going to add it to the root directory of your folders, right? So potentially you want to split this up into a couple of folders, like for example lib. So adding a solution folder doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually going to create a folder over here. So you want to create a couple of folders, a lib, and let's say tests, right? So this is where the actual library is going to live. And then we're going to have a test folder here where we're going to place our tests. In the lib, let's go ahead and add a new project. We're going to call it the same. So identity Marten lib. This is going to be a class library, and I'm going to be doing .NET 7 actually, because Marten currently doesn't support .NET 8 and the PostgreSQL driver for .NET 8. The team is working on upgrading that. So we're going to start with .NET 7, and all the other projects will have to be .NET 7 as well. Okay, so here we have the initial application, and then for tests, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up two things, because this is going to be an identity with the Marten integration. This is going to need to connect to a database, etc. We're going to need a running ASP.NET Core application. So one of the easiest things that you can do is just create an ASP.NET Core web application. It's going to be empty, and we'll just call it a mock application. All right, this is going to live in tests. Collapse this. Let's go ahead, add another project. We'll call this unit tests xunit, and here we'll say test.identity.marten. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and add it. Now for identity Marten, if I can open up the CS project file, we will need to add one more package over here in order to be able to run this mock application. So first of all, let's go ahead and add the dependency to it. And then we're going to look for MVC test. So Microsoft ASP.NET Core MVC testing. Again, make sure we select the appropriate version. So 7. and something, the latest version will definitely be the best choice here, because it's going to have whatever bug fixes, etc. So test identity Marten, add it to this project, and now we will be able to effectively spin up our mock application and test. So this will be the initial setup. I'm not actually going to implement the test just yet. I'm just going to leave whatever files are in here, and this mock application, if anything, we can touch it later. For now, maybe what I want to do is get as quickly as possible to what we're trying to build. So in Program CS, if we go to Builder, Services, Add Identity, this is going to be an identity user, and then you can supply an identity role. At this point, we have effectively set up the services for the identity framework. Under the hood, inside add identity, what it's going to do is register a bunch of other services. For example, services like user manager, they will require a service called iUserStore. Okay, so if I come back over here and I search for iUserStore, this isn't actually registered here. So this is something that the entity framework core integration is actually going to do. Okay, so when we're looking for identity entity framework core, so ASP.NET Core identity and any framework core. I'll select the latest package and add it to the mock application just so we can actually take a look through the code. And if you're using VS Code and you don't have a decompilation, or you're using Visual Studio and it's buggy or whatever, here's what you can do. If you go to nuget.org, let's go ahead and take a look at this. You take the package name, you come back over here and I don't know, let's go to the source repository first. So this is GitHub. You can go ahead and search for the package name. And ideally what you're going to find is a CS project file with this, okay? Open this file, and here you're gonna be able to find this entity framework core integration inside the identity folder, inside the SRC folder of ASP.NET Core. So now you can effectively arrive at the source code yourself and take a look through it. So when I do things such as, for example, add entity framework stores and add my entity DB context over here, and I decompile this, for example, you can see this looks a little bit janky for me because they haven't included debug symbols in here, etc. Or maybe they have, I can't remember exactly. I think it's the PBD file or something like that that you have to include for this to look a little bit prettier. But at this point, I might say, okay, this is a bunch of dookie. I don't want to be looking at this. I want to, you know, maybe identity entity framework builder extensions. Find the same file over here, and this will be a little bit prettier to look at. Okay. So what are they doing over here? We're calling add entity framework stores. We add the stores, which is this function over here, which is, by the way, working on this identity builder extension. So when we're going to be building our integration with Marten, we will need to be extending the same builder. All right. Then we have add stores. This is just a function which is going to try to work against the user type and the role type. These things are going to be present on the builder, so we can reuse that information as well. We then have the key type, and we're using a lot of reflection here to get all of this information. We then do a bunch of logic to figure out what kind of service we should be registering, and at the end, if we, I guess, search for add maybe scoped, I can see it's adding scoped services over here. We can see that we are trying to add this iUser store that I was referring to earlier, or we're trying to add this role store as well. Whatever this implementation is, you can see maybe over here, only user only store. So depending on the role type, if the role type is null, so if that hasn't been supplied to the identity builder, if we're doing this without a role, I'm not sure I've ever seen identity framework be used without a role, so I'm not sure how that goes. I think you will have to do add identity core, but nevertheless, this will only require us to implement iUser, and perhaps we can try to figure out how to actually do that. So let's come back over here and let's give this a shot. So builder services add identity, and here we have identity core, where in the generic type, let's see over here, if it asks us to supply anything, okay? At this point, we only have to supply user. The rest of the services which are being registered are pretty much the same, although the things that it doesn't register over here are going to be, let's come back to add identity over here, are all the cookie authentication schemas and stuff like that. So this can be pretty valuable. And actually, including the user manager, sign-in manager, and the role manager, these things aren't being added in identity core. So I'm going to say, let's do user store, and we're going to do role store, and I think that will be pretty much it. That's effectively the two interfaces that we will have to implement. So for identity Marten, again, let's come back over here, and whenever you're doing stuff like this, or you want to build your own ASP.NET Core, or you want to build your own service which integrates with ASP.NET Core, it's all right to find something similar and work from there. See how they do it and adapt it to your solution. So here I can see the references that it's using within its solution, Microsoft Extensions Identity Stores. Let's take that, come back over here, search for this package, and we have it right there. So 1705, this has been added to the mockup, although I want to include it in Identity Marten. So let's go ahead and place it over there. I'm then going to look for Marten, grab this package. And if I look at pre-release, there is version 7. So version 7 is the one that is going to have PG8 driver support and ASP.NET Core 8 support as well. Okay. So for now, we're bound to version 7, .NET 7, and we're going to be using this. Okay. So let's go ahead and add that to Identity Marten. For now, we don't need this, and as our mock application is effectively going to need to consume Identity Marten in order to perform its stuff, now what we're going to do is add a reference to Identity Marten, and as we're coding this up, perhaps we're going to add a little example to mock app, and then we will write a little test for it as well. Okay, this may require us to connect to a PostgreSQL database, as Marten doesn't have an in-memory one, but let's see, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. First of all, let's at least get something that's gonna look like add Marten store. Okay, so add Marten store, we want a function that looks something like this. Now let's go ahead and say identity framework extensions, or identity framework what's the type that's being returned over here? Identity builder extensions. Okay, so add a new class, identity builder extensions. This will be a static class. I have add Marten store here still, so public static identity builder, add Marten store, and we should have the same type here as well. So this identity builder, take identity builder, return it at the end, and do our work over here. So using the identity builder mainly, if we come back over here and we take a look at entity framework builder extension, we're going to see that what it's trying to do is have this registered on the services. So on the builder, we're going to find the services. By the end of this, what we're essentially trying to end up with is services add scoped, and we're gonna have user store, some kind of services, and then some kind of implementation as well. Okay, that didn't mean to do that. Wanted to place the dollar over here, but writer places it on the end there because it's a silly thing to do anyway. So using reflection, this is going to create a generic type. We can pretty much lift this for now, place this over here as user code and context type. I'm not too sure what that is. Type of context. Okay, so this is their DB context. So that's something that we are going to be working without. Role type, we have key type. Let's quickly double check where the key type is coming from. So identity user type, the key type is being supplied over here. So both the user store and the role store will need to depend on the key type. Maybe not. We will see. Maybe this is going to be like something specific to the implementation. So let's start doing something. So Marten user store. We're going to have some generic parameters and implement iUser store. The iUser store that we're implementing over here, let's double check. Actually, this is making an instance, and this is where it's adding the actual service. So first of all, it makes the generic type of the interface and then provides the user store type. So we're gonna do the same over here. Let's put this at the bottom because that's where this is going to have to live. We're gonna have iUser store. Let's take a look at the interface, and the TUser can be a regular class, which is fine. And there are gonna be a bunch of methods that we're gonna have to implement. Let's go ahead and just use identity user. So most people will just use identity user, and we can actually, if we're supplying identity user over here, let's pass a generic type right over here. This will have to be a class. So where T is a class, and this has to go on the end here. And let's go ahead, implement missing members. We're gonna have all of these things. So dispose method, I'm not gonna do anything with dispose. Let's just leave it over here dangling. format the code a little bit, and I will actually place this over here that this is an identity user, where we can specify the type of the key. So this T is going to be T user. There is going to be a type of key, and this is where they were supplying this. So let's go ahead and just quickly switch this around. A role type, maybe there is going to be something to do with the roles over here, I'm not sure. But anyway, we have things like get user ID async out of user. So let's just start implementing something. Task from result, this can be a synchronous operation. On the user, we just have the identifier, right? That is going to be a string, can maybe actually just toString this, okay? The error over here, cannot both specify constraint class and the class struct or unmanaged constraint. Let's go ahead and remove this. Identity user, let's take a look at the T key, where I equatable key. So we're gonna grab this constraint from identity user and just paste it over here. Potentially nullable, let's go ahead and suppress this, right? The bane of every C# developer's existence. You think you're handling nulls, you're being good, and then wabam, right? You get one of these bad boys. So anyway, we got this over here. I think you can do, so I'm not sure why it has get username and we get the T user, so we're just accessing it from the user itself. I guess if you're basically supplying a T user of any class, well, you gotta have like you know, some custom logic about where this username, email, etc. information is present on your custom class. So anyway, we have the username. I think that's okay there. And we then have set username. And this is just a task. So task, complete a task. Pretty sure at this point this is a pretty mundane thing to watch. So normalized username async, or get normalized username. So actually we want this, place this over here. And isn't there, yeah, there is a normalized username here. So set normalized username, just do the same, a bunch of getters and setters. So normalized username. We then have create async. So this is where a little bit of Marten comes in. Okay, we create a constructor, document session. Let's go ahead and place this over here and create async user. So what kind of things should be going in here? We can throw or argument null exception, throw if null user name of user. I think that's the way to do it. So right, argument and then parameter name. Cool. Let me double check the caller argument expression. I think the caller argument expression will put the name of the argument in here. Although I'm not gonna check and find out. I'm just gonna have this over here and pass it manually. Okay. Let's await over here. We're gonna pass the cancellation token. We're gonna put this here. Return identity result success. Parentheses. Was this a function or a property? Let's take a look at this. This is actually just a property. So it's like that. On the document session itself, we have something like store, marks multiple documents as needing to be inserted or updated. So I think, yeah, we'll have insert instead. We can go ahead and using the document session, insert the user. I think this should be pretty much it without handling all the like different edge cases and stuff like that, maybe potential race conditions. For now, not gonna worry about any of that. So we have something like that, delete async. I mean, pretty straightforward stuff for now. On delete, we have user, let's double check. This looks fine. So find by ID async, we have user ID. So string a user ID. I'm pretty sure if we have a T user this is going to have an ID of T key. So T key is just going to be an, what's it called? IEquatable. We do have the get user ID function over here. Having a think that we gotta somehow coerce this user ID to the correct type. I think first of all, let's check Marten DB, document DB. Make this maybe a little bit bigger. And document identity. So document identity, they're talking about what types of, because yeah, basically I don't know, I have to think about what types of identifiers the database supports. So Marten supports string, GUID, comp, GUID, int, or long. When the ID member of the document is not settable or not public, a no op ID generator. Okay, this is some crazy stuff. A custom ID generated strategy is used to implement the ID generation yourself. Okay, so custom identity strategies. Let's quickly take a look at this. And something crazy is going over there. So one of the easiest things that we can do is support string, GUID, int, and long. So coming back to here, let's check if T key, and we'll say type of T key equals type of string. We can actually just use this directly. So return, we're gonna go to the document session. Query, we are querying T user, so type of user. First or default async, no generic parameter over here. We'll need to pass a cancellation token, and we will need a where clause. So for the user, we're gonna have an ID, and we wanna compare it to user ID, all right? And we can pretty much do the same for all of these. You can do things like declaring the query here first, storing it in a variable, and then only varying the where clause between the if statements. I find those kind of things or those kind of solutions a little bit complicated. I just put the full if statement with repetition in each one of these. So if it's a GUID, let's make sure that we can parse it. So var GUID ID equals GUID try parse. We put user ID into here, and out var actually comes the GUID ID there. So, and we'll have another if statement over here because potentially this may not succeed. Okay, at which point we will return null. I will actually put a wait over here to make this asynchronous. And you might be thinking, all right, so bad, just use task return from all. It's okay. If you have an exception over here, we're going to see it in the stack trace. So definitely not the end of the world. Let's go ahead and put the GUID in here. Same thing over here and over here. This is going to be, let's say, int. We'll do int. This is int ID. Place this over here. Here we will await, and then we have the same here, but long. Take long. Try parse long. Again, await over here, and instead we do long ID. Place this over here, and otherwise throw new argument exception and say something like unsupported key type, and then output the type maybe. So T key, okay, maybe type of T key and name, perhaps even full name. All right, then hopefully we have a bit of an easy one. Just place this over here as well. Await, we then have T user. We don't have long ID. We want to grab normalized username and just compare it to here. Okay, I don't know if Marten has this, and it does. Okay, so potentially we can actually combine all of these. Let me do just that. Okay, so we pretty much have our Marten user store implementation. where we just apply the tuser and tkey. We didn't actually need trole. I don't know exactly what the other repository is doing, but we didn't need it. So on the identity builder, we have the user type, and we also have the key type. No, we do not. That is actually present on the user type. So user type, generic arguments, we actually just get the 0th one, and that should be what we're looking for. Okay, so this is user type. Grab that, place it on the end over here. Also, we want to implement the user type over here. So you can see here how tuser, the type of user, is identity user with tkey. We want to take the identity builder user type, and we want to forge this generic type. So make generic type. Role store, we don't have that just yet. Do we need it? Potentially, maybe not. User role store. The easiest thing user role store is that role store. Okay. And what's the generic argument over here? We have where trole is class. Okay, so we can provide some kind of bogus implementation for now to get up and running as soon as possible. So mock role store. This is role store, and then class. We can probably just give it an object, and it should be happy. Okay. We effectively just have some kind of service that we can register. So object, and then we have mock role store. All right, we registered something so we can actually resolve the service if it needs to. But for now, hopefully, if you've been paying attention, if we're doing add identity, and we're gonna try to use the user manager. The user manager mainly utilizes the user store. You can't use the role store here. So if I write a test for the user manager, that's all that I'm gonna need. Okay, so I'm adding a Marten store over here. Let's go ahead and maybe add user. We're gonna, well, add the endpoints for this. So user manager. Here we have it. Perhaps even grab the result and return the result over here. See what it gives us, right? So we just have succeeded or errors, all right? So that's on the user manager. Perhaps then we want to, I think the simplest name will be to grab it by the name. So let's grab the user manager here again. We are gonna take this over here and find by name async. Find by email is a weird one. I'm not sure how it's gonna do that because we didn't do the implementation for it. So it has this get email store. This store is email store, otherwise throw not supported exception. So I actually have to implement more interfaces on my user store if I want to fully support this. Otherwise, some methods are not going to be supported. So interesting to know. Otherwise, you see here, no casting is happening. So yeah, maybe we're not going to do the full implementation in this round, but just to go through the journey of starting it off, starting to test, filling the blanks out, publishing it, and then building something using this package. So anyway, we have the name over here. And let's go ahead and just return the result. All right. The name is clearly missing something. Let's make sure this is an expression. Actually, you can get rid of async over here. All right. Cheeky little tea break. So anyway, we have our mock application where we're registering this stuff. A couple of things that are missing over here are connections for Marten to the database. So services add Marten, and then we should be able to also provide a connection string. So server, I think this is actually going to have to be host. I know you can get it from your DB app settings connection string. This is just, you know, to get started. I think this is what I have. Let's double check. So I'm gonna create this over here. We're gonna have PSQL Postgres. So that's the user that we're gonna use. User Postgres, and then for me, password is password. Super secure. So I can't remember, no relations here. List databases. I have test over there that I could probably use. So let's drop database test and create database test. So we're just gonna get a fresh one. All right. Here, let's semicolon database equals test. And an important thing to note here is, well, Marten is actually going to create the table on the fly. So let's see if we can actually witness this effect, right? So let's connect to test. We're going to take a look at relations, and nothing is here. That is absolutely fine. Let's go ahead and open our command line over here, run the application, and maybe things will explode, maybe not. And things did explode. Perfect. So why did they explode? We have the identity user over here, and we are implementing string. Basically, the reason I'm already looking at the key is because the only thing that, well, I get an index out of range exception. The only place where that might happen, I'm thinking, is this place over here. So let's put a debugger over here. Basically, what I'm thinking is I might have to get to implementing type and get the generic argument. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna launch a debugger. I'm gonna basically pause on here, and then I can use the interactive window to slowly get to the value that I need. And that's pretty much the process that I like to use. So I have the identity builder. I have the user type over here. And hopefully this is not too small. So for example, identity builder, a user type, I have my generic arguments. What do I have over here? I don't have anything. So is there anything about get interfaces or parent? Nope. It's I can see it right over there, base type. So let's take a look at base type. If we have a look at here, it says identity user, and then it has the generic argument. So here, let's take a look at generic arguments, and that is string. So on the user type, let's take the base type, and potentially what we want to do over here is say generic arguments equals 1, then return. And I know my real estate for code is like minimal here, and it suddenly turned whatever. Let's stop the. So this is at least presentable, right? And otherwise we do this, or attempt to do this, and otherwise it's gonna explode. Over here, base type remove. So if we have generic arguments, go ahead and return this bit. We don't, grab it from the base type. Okay, put a question mark over here. Make sure we grab the length here, and then at the end, throw new invalid or argument exception, bad user type, couldn't find key type. Okay, give this a little format. Let's go ahead and run this again from the terminal. So we have inner exception number 4 over here, error validating the service descriptor for role manager identity role. Okay, so what did we create in identity builder extensions? We're here already. So mock role, it's for object. So let's just say identity role is the thing that we're implementing. If you don't know about the keybind, smart selection, select the whole body, delete it, implement missing members. Again, boom, no problem. All right, ready to rock and roll. Change this to identity role as well. And there we have it. Let's go ahead and run this again. And it started. So if we go to the root, we don't have anything. Let's say name equals Bob. Do we have a Bob? So looking at this exception, couldn't set the user, set user parameter user, and this is something to do with connection string. So I've probably messed up my connection string. Let's take a look at this user over here. maybe user name, right? Who knows? Let's restart, give this a refresh, and there we have it. Okay, no, we can't find one. So one thing that I hopefully, okay, I put it on get. So let's duplicate this. We're going to call add user, I think it is. So true without errors. Let's come back over here, refresh, and there we have our user without the password hash, etc. Super minimal implementation currently. I'm gonna end the episode here because the initial setup has been long enough. So hopefully you can see where this is going to be going. I've done a manual test here. Now the test that I've done manually, I want to do it automatically. I know this may be a unit test, is it an integer? It doesn't matter. We have some kind of scenario we want to fulfill, we want to write a test for it, right? We're going to be doing those things once we cover most of the use cases. I'm going to show you how to package this up into a Nuget package, do it as part of a pipeline on GitHub, and bada bang, bada boom, and that's going to be the deal, right? So very big thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. If you have any questions, make sure to leave it in the comment section. Don't forget the source code for this video will be available on GitHub for free. And a big and special thank you goes out to all of my patron supporters that motivate me to do videos lately. So a big and special thank you to you. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.